You're listening to the Talon Talk podcast on Talon Television.
So, Jaden and Mitch, holy Austin Matthews in his NHL debut, huh?
You're not kidding, Austin. He had 4 goals on the night. The kid got a hat trick in his first NHL game.
In the first period. I think that was the most impressive part of that he did it in the first period, and his 4th goal came just a minute and 25 into the second.
It's got to be incredible to be the number 1 overall pick and then just be like, hey, everyone, I'm not just some kid. I can score hat tricks, too. Right away.
Yeah, and the scary part is he made it look easy out there. He looked like he's been in the league for, 10 years. 3 shots, 3 goals. His first 3 shots in the league, he secured a hat trick. That's crazy.
Right, after 60 minutes of hockey, people are ready to crown him king of the NHL and also say that he is the best player on the Maple Leafs. It's not close either. I mean, you have Marner there feeding him pucks, but for the most part, Matthews is the guy that people are looking at now. They're expecting him to carry that franchise from day one. And we can't ignore the end result. The Leafs lost last night. So Matthews has to come into that locker room after scoring 4 goals and pretend like he is depressed that he scored 4 goals because his team lost in overtime.
That's just got to be such a weird feeling to handle that. But when you guys look at him and you look at last year's draft class when it was McDavid versus Eichel, who's going to go first or second, and now you got this kid, Matthews, who's like, who's McDavid and Eichel again?
And we're seeing 2015 number 1 overall pick and the 2016 number 1 overall pick just dominate so far. Connor McDavid had 2 goals last night also in their 7-4 win. He had 2 assists also. So both those guys had 4 points in their debut. So right now, obviously, Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews are looking a lot better than Jack Eichel, who just went out with that high ankle sprain.
Right, I think that Sabres Twitter was thrown into a panic early Wednesday when we heard of Eichel's injury, probably out 4 to 6 weeks.
Yep,
but then you get tortured with the fact that Matthews pots 4 last night and McDavid scores 2, and you're looking at Eichel, and he looks like a scrub, but this guy is so talented. That's just a credit to how good Matthews and McDavid are.
I don't think it's an understatement saying that Matthews and McDavid are superstars, and they're already elite. Eichel is maybe not elite status yet, but he led the Sabres in goals last year. In his first league in the NHL, he led a team in goals, which is a pretty good accomplishment right there.
Given it's the Sabres, and they were pretty futile in the first 2 seasons previous to acquiring Jack Eichel, but it's impressive for any kid to step in at the NHL level and play like he did last season. And
Absolutely.
Do you expect Eichel? Who do you expect to lead the Sabres in goals this year with Eichel missing extended period of time now?
I guess maybe Kane.
I'm
maybe
just gonna speak truthfully here, and I would not be shocked if Eichel still led the Sabres in goals after a month and a half.
We'll see what that timetable is for his return, and if he comes back in a shorter amount of time between 4 to 8 weeks, maybe on the more end towards 4 weeks, but we'll see. But it's 8 weeks. You still think he can, if he's out 8 weeks, he could still be in the consideration for that?
I think he very well could. The Sabres have a team right now that they're probably going to be scoring by committee. It's going to be a little bit of Reinhardt, a little bit of O'Reilly, some Kane mixed in, and Ristolainen can score too. So I don't think it's going to be one person taking control of the charge here. And with the Eichel injury, it's a high ankle sprain, which is pretty much the worst news the Sabres could have heard, because if he would have just broken the ankle, the healing process might have been a little bit quicker, and it would have expedited his return, and the Sabres would have had a better shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah, that high ankle sprain is definitely more tedious of an injury there, especially Jack Eichel. So much of his game is put on his skating. He's such a good skater. Skates obviously putting so much pressure on that ankle, so yeah, it's crazy to say, but a lot of people are wishing that he would have broken that ankle rather than that high ankle sprain.
His skating is definitely the biggest part of his game, his playmaking ability, and that long stride is unmistakable. When you see it on the ice, you know 15's on the ice, and that's what puts people in the stands. We've had people talking to us throughout the last couple of weeks saying the only reason they went to the preseason games was to see Jack Eichel play.
It's crazy how fast the guy gets from blue line to blue line. He's one of the most explosive skaters in the league right now, and it's a huge loss for the Sabres.
Right, and just to look back on Matthews for a second here, I saw a stat last night, and I know 4 goals in your first game is very impressive, but this stat increased my level of interest in Matthews. Scores his first 4 goals in his first game. Gordie Howe never scored 4 goals in a game. One of the league's legends. Gretzky did it in game 136 of his career, so a season and a half in.
Jeez.
Mario Lemieux did it 111 games in, so it's a credit to how good Matthews is, and I think pro hockey in Switzerland prepared him for the NHL more than it has prepared some of the junior players.
When we were talking about putting people in the stands, and the Sabres, they've had their slow years. The Maple Leafs obviously haven't won the Stanley Cup in God knows how long. And the Oilers being a relatively small market, Edmonton not being a huge city. So what impact does it have to have, Eichel's injured, but what impact does McDavid and Matthews have on not just their city, but the whole NHL when it comes to people tuning in to watch them?
I think that it's tremendous. Their impact on the league can't be understated at any point, because you see these guys come in and within one game, the whole NHL is talking about Austin Matthews. This is a kid who is 18 years old, and he's playing in a league of adults that have been doing this their entire lives, and he's dominating.
Yeah, Twitter blew up last night, without a doubt, with these young guys coming in. I think we're about to see the NHL ratings go up. I think it's about as popular as it has been in a while, the NHL. It's on the come up, and these young stars are just helping.
It's a shame to me that they are in separate conferences, because I would definitely like to see Matthews and McDavid matched up in a playoff series or more than twice in the regular season.
Yep.
It's a shame that they're not playing closer together, but I think we'll see some of that with Eichel and Matthews when Eichel returns, for sure.
I was excited because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Eichel and McDavid were supposed to play the second game of the year. Is that what it was?
Right.
Yep. Edmonton was against Buffalo in the second game of the year, but we're going to have to wait till Eichel's return.
But some lighter news for Buffalo, even though Eichel's out, they did sign Rasmus Ristolainen for 6-year extension.
6 years, yep.
6 years. That's about $5.5 million
Right.
a year on his contract. And Mitch, you got any more details on that?
Right, $32.4 million over the next 6 years. Quite a deal here. If you look at the comparables, guys that have similar deals to Ristolainen, he is leagues above them in terms of talent. Guys that are just above him in pay, Tyler Myers, former Sabre, and I think a lot of people would say that Myers doesn't come close to Ristolainen.
Much rather take Ristolainen over
You've got
Myers.
Matthew Carl, James Wisniewski, who just got cut from a tryout, Alex Goligoski, guys like that who are making more money than Ristolainen, and he's 21 years old, and the ceiling is so high for this kid. And then guys just below him, Seth Jones, very good player, Jay Bomeister and Sheldon Souray.
Well, Bomeister surprises me down that low. But you just named those guys who get more money than Ristolainen. Ristolainen's more talented with them, but you got to think he's on the ice a lot, Ristolainen. With the amount of ice time he has, the Sabres couldn't have gone wrong with that contract.
Led the Sabres in ice time last year, about 25 minutes a game.
Right, and he is going to be in for another big payday, because at the end of this contract, he's only 27 years old. So he's going to be paid pretty handily at the end of this contract if he continues to produce and grow as he has his first 3 years with the Sabres.
Yeah, definitely something to look forward to. He's a young kid, definitely on the rise.
Right.
So speaking of the Sabres, they do open up against the Canadians. Got a couple of injuries to report with that one.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one for the Sabres. Obviously, talked about Eichel, Kyle Okposo, free agent they just picked up is hurt. But, on the flip side of things, Montreal doesn't have Carey Price, so, which one weighs out. But, I don't expect it to be too great of a game, but, we'll see his first game of the year. Lots of injuries. I think things are going to get rounded out as the year goes on.
I think you're exactly right on that. I'm thinking with the Sabres that if they can just stay afloat with Robin Lehner and net, with all these injuries, if they can stay afloat until Eichel comes back, until they can really get things moving again, that they will still very much be in the race for the playoffs this year. And just to throw things back to Ristolainen, he's the third highest paid Sabre already at $5.4 million. So Murray has done a great job of getting some talent in here and figuring out some way, some magic, to not pay them what most people think they're worth. And it's crazy to think that they have him in control for another 6 years.
When you say the Sabres could be in the hunt of the playoffs at the end of the year, what would they have to do to kind of just hold the ship barely afloat until Eichel can get back?
they're putting a lot of pressure on Leonard. I think he's going to have to perform. But also, I think with Eichel going down, I think the biggest player has to step up is Reinhart. Right. I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on Reinhart. Obviously, O'Reilly is their top player now. Kane's going to have to step up. It's just, as Mitch said, it's going to be a lot of even distribution with the goals. You're not going to see one guy with significantly more goals, significantly more points than the next guy. It's going to be, a lot of guys with, just the same amount of goals throughout the season goes until Eichel comes back.
Yep, and Reinhart is one of those guys where a lot of people were saying last year that the only reason he was producing was because he was playing on a line with Jack Eichel, or he was playing on a line with Ryan O'Reilly. But this is a kid that was drafted second overall. The Sabres didn't take him for no reason. He can score goals in the NHL, and I don't think he needs Eichel by his side to do so.
Tonight he'll have Evander Kane and Ryan O'Reilly by his side. And with Reinhardt's talent, if you can't succeed with that, it's great. I mean, you don't need Eichel when you got that talent left or right of you.
Right, and just back to Ristolainen one more time here. Since joining the Sabres, 2013, 2014, plays 34 games in Buffalo, 34 in Rochester. More of a development stage, but we saw some of the flashes. 2014, 2015, 78 games in his sophomore season. Played very well, playing with guys that were not at his level on defensive pairings. And then 2015, 2016, last year, all 82 games. This guy does not have trouble with injuries, and that's another reason why I'm very comfortable with the Sabres giving him a 6-year deal.
To go around the league, Sidney Crosby has announced that he's not going to start in the opener for the Penguins. So with all these injuries, guys sitting out, I mean, Eichel getting injured in practice, that's a fluke. He was going to start. With Price being out, Crosby being out, what is going on in the NHL? The guys are kind of sitting out home openers. It's kind of detrimental to their fan bases to not see them on the ice opening day, isn't it?
I mean, it's a physical sport, hockey, without a doubt. And you got to think, hockey is an 82-game season. The Penguins aren't going to put Sidney Crosby out there with, he has a concussion, he's in their concussion protocol. They're not going to risk it in the first game of the year. They got their eyes on the prize. They want to go back-to-back and bring another cup back to Pittsburgh.
Right, and I think there's some long-term effects to these injuries that we saw. With the last time Crosby went down with a concussion.
It's not his first concussion. He's had many in his career.
They were talking that him and his family were discussing possible retirement at that point, even though his skill level is through the roof. You see this problem in the NFL, you see it in the NHL. These guys cannot keep doing this to their bodies. It's just not worth it. And it would be terrible to see something like that happen in the NHL where one of the biggest stars has to step away from the game.
And the Penguins have enough talent around them that they can still win in this league without Sidney Crosby.
Exactly.
I would argue that team could win a Stanley Cup without Sidney Crosby.
You're absolutely right. And with Matt Murray between the pipes, absolutely stellar last year. Nobody saw that coming. And I think that kid is going to have a very long NHL career, no doubt.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, well, to wrap up the NHL, that was a solid topic there. To wrap it up, McDavid going off, Matthews going off, Eichel being injured. It's going to be a lot of things to look forward to in the short coming 2 weeks for the start of the NHL. Yep. To move over to the NFL, the Bills play the Niners this week. The Niners come to Buffalo with Colin Kaepernick named as their starting quarterback. So, first things first. Let's not talk about football. Is he going to stand or kneel?
I think he's definitely going to kneel here. I mean, we're not going to stray from the ordinary. I think Kaepernick is taking a stand for something that he really does believe in, and I think that he's going to continue to do that in Buffalo, and he's going to get some fans throwing stuff at him and yelling stuff, and he's going to have to deal with that. I mean, he's done it all season, and I think he's going to continue to do it.
Yeah, I think Buffalo's a pretty crazy atmosphere. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. So it's going to be loud. Kaepernick is going to get a lot of crap. I saw Shady McCoy advise the fans, take it easy on Kaepernick. Don't give him anything. Obviously, Shady is going to be in support of Kaepernick. But, I guess we'll find out Sunday. It's his first start for Kaepernick, so he's probably going to get criticism that he hasn't gotten yet.
It was funny to see that Shady does support the movement that Kaepernick started, but he also did pay for 20 police officers to come to the game in Buffalo this Sunday, so that's something maybe he's just trying to get under Kaepernick's skin or get into his head. But this is a guy that has fallen off a cliff. We're talking about a guy that made it to the Super Bowl in 2012 and
almost made it twice in a row. He made
3 NFC championship games.
Shocked the league. We had a year 2012, where we had RG3, Russell Wilson, Kaepernick, and Andrew Luck coming into the league, and we said this is going to change the way quarterbacks play in the NFL. And now, last man standing is Wilson. Luck, sort of.
Yeah.
But with Wilson, he's learned to throw from the pocket. So I don't think we're going to see that change that we first thought we were going to in 2012. And Kaepernick has to improve from the pocket if he wants to remain.
Yeah, Kaepernick has a lot to improve on if he wants to succeed in this league. But if I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, I am more scared of Colin Kaepernick starting than I am Blaine Gabbert. We know how good Blaine Gabbert can be. And as he showed us here, it's not very.
Right.
I was about to say, define good.
Yeah, he's not a very good quarterback. He hasn't proved it in the National Football League yet. Colin Kaepernick has. You know, he's mobile on his feet. He can still run, that guy. If the Bills don't stop that, they're going to have issues. I think the test is, can they keep him in the pocket? And if they do, Buffalo's probably going to win that game because Cap doesn't have that great of an arm.
Right, and I think a big part of that is going to be the Bills' speed on defense, and they have the linebacker speed. Zach Brown, probably the fastest linebacker in the NFL. We saw in New England when he chased down Julian Edelman for 90 yards as a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Preston Brown the same way, very good at containing quarterbacks and stopping the run. I want to first look at is why the 49ers decided to go with Gabbert over Kaepernick to begin with. With Chip Kelly coming in, it was a little bit of a weird decision last season for Jim Tomsula to name Gabbert the quarterback, but if you look at some of the stats, Kaepernick started the first 8 games of the season. He was 3-5. The last 8, Gabbert was 2-6. Their completion percentage just 4 points apart, and their quarterback rating was almost identical. So Gabbert and Kaepernick, recently at least, have played at a similar level.
You just think with Chip Kelly's style of play, he's got a West Coast offense, high run and gun kind of thing. You would think that Kaepernick would be more suitable for that kind of playbook. So I agree with you, Mitch, 100%. It's weird to see Gabbert get the nod at the start of the season and now at week 6 decide to go to Kaepernick.
Right, and with Kaepernick, you see him now. He used to be ripped. This guy was in incredible shape in 2012. Comes in this year, he just looks like a skinny dude.
Yeah, he looks like a mess out there. He looks like extremely skinny. He doesn't look like in shape.
He's got the Randy Moss afro.
Got the Randy Moss afro. I'm not against that. I'm a big fan of that, though. But, we haven't seen any reports of him being out of shape, though, so...
Right, I think he is in shape still. It's just that he's not at the playing weight that Chip Kelly and even Kaepernick would probably admit that he wants to be at.
Yeah.
3 shoulder surgeries in the offseason, and throughout his career, I think those have affected him. He's not been able to lift in the weight room like he wants to. And even Chip Kelly said that Cap is about 215 now. He would prefer him to be around 225, 230, and especially for a quarterback who runs, you need a guy to be durable for you.
Exactly. You need a guy who's a little more built, a guy who's not afraid to take a hit. Like Tyrod. Take Tyrod, for example. He's not the biggest or tallest guy, but he is defined. He's got muscle definition. He's a strong kid, so he will take a hit at the sidelines. He'll take a hit in the pocket. And to go off Kaepernick, with him not being as big as he is, I wonder how that's going to fare out against Kyle Williams, Jerry Hughes, and NFL leading sacker Lorenzo Alexander.
And
I was hoping you were going to note him, Mitch, when you were talking about Preston and Zach Brown, because those linebackers have been playing great. But Lorenzo Alexander, 7 sacks. If you look at his sacks prior in his career, it's like 2 a year, 1.5 a year, 0 a year. Guy has 7 sacks through 5 games. He's leading the NFL right now. He's right ahead of Von Miller, who has 6 or 6.5. So let's see if he can keep it up on the rush.
Alexander was primarily a special teams guy before he came to Buffalo. 6 career sacks
That makes
before
sense,
he came to Buffalo in his entire career. Now he's got 7, and he's going to be chasing down Kaepernick. Just to go back on the Kaepernick situation, guy went vegan 10.5 months ago. Looks visibly skinnier. And I wanted to look at some of the guys that have tried it in the past. We saw it in the MLB with Prince Fielder. He tried it for a while. Reverted back to eating meat because he just couldn't keep the muscle mass up to be an effective professional athlete. And Tony Gonzalez did it when he played in the NFL briefly, a couple weeks long, and he said he lost so much weight that he had to start eating more protein. And I just think that it's going to be too much for Kaepernick to overcome against this Bills defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got Buffalo winning that game as well.
Right. Well, speaking of who we got winning that game, Mitch, what about you?
I'm going to go with the Bills in a pretty handy win. I think Kaepernick is going to be forced to throw from the pocket, and I think he's going to make mistakes because it hasn't been his forte throughout his career. And I think he's going to try to escape the pocket too often and rely on his legs, but it's just going to come up short against this Bills defense that has really redeemed themselves after a poor showing against New York on Thursday night.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think in my mind a handy win is like what the Bills did to Arizona 32-18 or what they did to the Rams 30-19. But I think they're going to be even more handy against the Niners. My bold prediction for that game is they're going to hold them under 14 points. I think it's going to be a 35-14 kind of blowout, start to finish. Just run it right down the Niners' throats.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that the 49ers defense has any athletes that can keep up with McCoy or Gillislee for that matter.
McCoy's playing great as well.
Exactly.
He's on pace for well over 1,000 yards right now. So we'll see if Shady can keep that up.
I think he should run roughshod all over that 49ers defense. Gillislee, pound it in from the 2-yard line if you have to, but Bill should win this game.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to go on to our matchups to watch. And Jaden, we'll start with you. What do you got this week?
Well, I mean, we got a good slate of games this week, but my main matchup this week is going to be the Cowboys versus the Packers. You got the 4-1 Cowboys. The 4-1 Cowboys, I think we're all surprised by that, against the 3-1 Packers. Dallas is going to be traveling to Lambeau for that game. Obviously, talk of the league right now, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott. Dak hasn't thrown a pick yet. We'll see if Lambeau can shake him up. I'm predicting that Prescott throws his first pick of the game, or of his season, or of his career.
He very well may, and the other thing with Prescott is that he really hasn't done a ton in terms of production, but he's just not turning the ball over, which is all you need from a rookie quarterback filling in for your starter, Tony Romo. And I don't think that the Cowboys have much ammunition to go out there and say that Romo deserves to be the starting quarterback at this point.
Absolutely. And with the way Dak can use his arm and also use his legs to run one direction and Elliott to run the other way. Elliott has 3 straight games now with 130 yards in his rookie campaign. That's comparable with Eric Dickerson. So when you put a guy in that kind of company, it's pretty incredible.
Elliott has that ability to change direction very much like McCoy in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
Quick as anybody in the league, and I don't think any linebackers are going to want to meet him in the open field. He is explosive, and running behind that offensive line is a dangerous combination.
And as we were saying, does Romo deserve to start when he comes back? Dak already said, this is Tony's team. Tony deserved this spot, so when Tony comes back and is healthy, he will take the reins as a starter. Even if Dak does have 15 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, this is Tony Romo's team. But as you were saying, he hasn't made mistakes yet. They need a quarterback who won't make mistakes. With that offensive line, they're going to run Zeke all day long. With that defense, they're playing well. That's all I need is someone who won't turn the ball over, and it's reflecting on their wins. So,
and he is a young quarterback, and yes, he hasn't made a mistake yet. But you were saying earlier in your matchup to watch that Lambeau may or may not shake him up. I think we're seeing a resurgence of the old Clay Matthews of 2010, 2011.
Yep.
What do you think Dak's biggest strategy is going to be in for that game going into Green Bay?
I mean, you got to hope that the line blocks for him. I think they will. I got Travis Frederick, Zach Martin.
I think Dak is going to be running for his life out there against that Packers defense, and that might be a good thing for the Cowboys. He might get out of the pocket and be able to find some underneath throws to Witten. If Dez is able to come back, I don't think he is coming back, but
stress fracture in that shin still, yeah.
But he's been able to find guys like Cole Beasley who have stepped up big time since Romo has been out. But we can't overstate Prescott's production at this point. He is a rookie, so we'll see where he goes. But until he plays in a high-pressure situation, maybe in a playoff game, I'm not going to go out and say that he's the franchise quarterback or that Romo should be unseated by him.
Yeah, and in my matchup of the week, I think the Packers are going to take that one. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm going to go 23-17 Packers. I mean, the Packers, every single game they've played in this year has been a one-possession game. So expect that this year. The Cowboys, obviously, they're not joking around, 4-1. So 23-17 Packers.
Mitch, how about you?
My matchup to watch is the Bengals and the Patriots. This is a game that the Bengals need. They're 2-3 right now, and to stay in a wild card race, which sees the Bills at 3-2, just one game out of the playoffs. They need this game to stay in the race. With that tough division, you've got the Ravens and the Steelers playing well also, and Tom Brady, a good showing against Cleveland. Many thought that it would be even worse than it was, but I think against that Cincinnati defense, it might be a little tougher for him, and I think it's going to be a close one. but I'm going to give it to New England, and I think they're going to go 5-1.
Okay. Now, with Dalton playing as bad as he did against Dallas last week, now what's he got to do to right that ship? I mean, A.J. Green wasn't the issue. He was passing to him. It's just Dalton couldn't stay in the pocket very long.
Yeah, and historically we've seen that from Dalton. We've seen him produce at times, and at other times it seems like he doesn't belong in the NFL, and it's been a problem for the Bengals, quite frankly, and I think it's been even tougher for him this year without Tyler Eifert battling multiple injuries, and that's a guy that is a difference maker on the field. His stats are very comparable to Rob Gronkowski's in New England, and that's saying something. For a guy who's playing in Cincinnati with Dalton, he's finding these receivers on a consistent basis when they're playing well. When they get into the playoffs, it's a different story with Dalton. They need him to find that consistency. He's got to step it up.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, I think when Eifert comes back, that team's going to be totally different. I mean, defenses, they got a plan for Tyler Eifert. You put a linebacker on him, they kill him. You throw a cornerback on him, that takes a corner out of covering another receiver. So I think I got the Patriots in this week as well. Just, Bengals aren't playing well. Dalton's not playing well. And once they got Eifert back, I think we'll see the Cincinnati Bengals playing better. But I think it's going to be too little too late because they're about to drop to 2-4. And until Eifert comes back, I don't see a game much better.
I agree. I think they are in a situation much like the Sabres where they need to hold the boat above the water until Eifert comes back and they can get that offense rolling. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be too late for the Bengals.
Yeah, I think the Patriots are going to take care of that one, no problem. Tom Brady's got the rust shaken off against Cleveland, so I think he's going to come back firing like his old self against Cincinnati.
Rusty game, and he throws 3 touchdowns and over 300 yards, but that's just how good he's been.
Making fantasy owners everywhere mad as Martellus Bennett scores 3 touchdowns and Gronk doesn't get away. Yeah, in my matchup for the week, I'm going to go with Ravens versus Giants. Now, the Giants coming off of what was a pretty tough game. Even though they were in it, they were only down 1 possession against Green Bay, but they weren't really in it until the fourth quarter. Eli just looked terrible. I think it's really important for Eli to go out there, minimize the mistakes, and not try to be the hero. He's trying to he's throwing too many picks. He's trying to move down the field too quick. Use the running game, use the sidelines, use screen passes, and OBJ looked pretty good. He's in his interview after the game. He's happier now, which I don't really know what that means. As an NFL receiver, you should be happy to play all the time, but
yeah, they got a lot of problems there in New York with that. Like you said, they got to utilize their run game. They don't really have a run game. Their starting running back is Rashad Jennings.
And they've got Orleans Darkwa in there now, so that's not looking pretty.
Yeah, and Shane Vereen's out.
Yeah, that's right.
Their line's not great. They put a lot of pressure on their defense, who is performing really well. I'll give them that. Olivia Vernon was a great signing. But I think their key is just that passing game. Eli's got to step it up. He's got to distribute that ball. He's got Odell Beckham Jr., who, I don't care what you say, top 5 receiver in the league.
Absolutely.
He's just got to start playing like it and acting like it on and off the field. Get the ball to Sterling Shepard, great rookie receiver, and Victor Cruz. He's, we'll see if he has anything left in his career because the past 2-3 years has just been nothing out of him.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that both of these teams are pretenders. I don't have any faith in Eli Manning and the Giants, and I definitely don't have faith in a Ravens team that is now without Steve Smith to produce at any consistent level. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's important for the Giants to get that run game going. And when Odell Beckham isn't throwing a temper tantrum on the sidelines, I think he needs to really step it up. He has played poorly this year. This is a guy who has produced at historic levels in his first 2 seasons, but he just hasn't had it this year. I'm going to say the Giants take this one, but it's going to be an ugly game.
I agree with you. You actually kind of touched upon one of my keys there. I definitely think OBJ and Sterling Shepard are both going to be huge critical parts to this Giants offense if Eli's going to get it right again. Like we said, Shepard came out the first few games of the season. He had a great run. I think a key to the Ravens is their defense. Get to Eli quick, make him rush, because Eli is not the most mobile quarterback out there. If you get to him early, if you give him less than 2 to 3 seconds in the pocket, it'll collapse early and he's going to have to throw it away. Terrell Suggs is a great leader in that Ravens defense. And if they do that, they have a chance, but I agree with you, Mitch. I think it's going to be an ugly game. It's going to be a low-scoring game, like a 13-7, 16-10 kind of game. And without Steve Smith out there for Flacco, he doesn't have a whole lot. we'll see what Eli can do with his passing game.
And I agree. And Eli hasn't been a guy who has liked to throw the ball away much in his career. So if they do give him only 2 seconds to throw the ball, you might see Eli throwing it to guys in purple jerseys quite a few times on Sunday.
And from there, that's going to be the end for the NFL segment. So now, one of the biggest times in sports is now it's October. It is postseason baseball. And right now we got the American League Championship Series set with the Red Sox versus the Indians. The Cubs made it to the National League Championship Series, and now there are two teams left in the NLDS. You got the Dodgers at the Nationals now, and the Nationals, they're throwing out Max Scherzer, and the Dodgers are throwing out a very scary Rich Hill, I guess.
Rich Hill, and this is a Rich Hill that many people hear it and they go, that guy still plays in the league, but he's had a very good year in L.A. And this is the same Rich Hill that played in Oakland, the same Rich Hill that played a year or two in New York with the Yankees, but it's not a guy I would feel real comfortable with going into a Game 5 of the divisional series.
Especially when the Nationals are at home and they got Mad Max on the mound. It's gonna be very scary for the Dodgers.
Yeah, so you guys are taking the Dodgers in that one? Or are you taking the Nationals? You're taking the Nationals?
I'm taking the Nats. I think that Rich Hill is going to be beat up by a good Nationals lineup. Not a lineup that is going to produce a whole lot, but I don't think they're going to need a whole lot tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Nationals, too. The Dodgers are just a little too hit or miss for me. They got Adrian Gonzalez, but he's getting older. Corey Seager's potential MVP candidate. But for the most part, over the course of the season and in the postseason, they are very hit or miss. The Nationals do have a lot of lefties in their lineup, and Rich Hill is lefty, but their lefties, Bryce Harper, Daniel Murphy, are just pure hitters. They don't worry about righty-lefty splits. They just go out there and they hit no matter who's on the mound. So I'm going to take the Nationals in this one, and they're going to play the Cubs in the National League Championship Series.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to have a tough time picking any team against the Cubs. Even if the Nationals do advance, it's going to be tough. Even though they're the Cubs, and they might do something as Cubsy as they've done in the last 100 years.
108.
But Scherzer on the mound tonight, I don't think that the Dodgers will see much action behind the plate.
So let's move on to the championship series from both sides. Jaden, we're going to start with the National League. If we do predict Nationals correctly, even if we don't, it's still going to be the Dodgers or Nationals versus the Cubs. Who do you think?
I got the Cubs moving on. I think this year they're going to the World Series. And I personally think they're going to win it all this year. I think they're going to end that 100-year drought. That team's just dominant. You got to look at you got Arrieta, and then their bats. Javier Baez has also been playing phenomenal this year. Just top to bottom, defensively and offensively, that's just a great ball team.
When you say the bats, you mentioned Javier Baez, and they also got Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo. And you know who else has a bat? Jake Arrieta.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, yeah,
Saw what he did against Madison.
Those pitchers can hit in Chicago, and that's a team 108 years now that they are in a World Series drought. They haven't won it, but over 100 wins this year. So this is a team that was the best team in baseball in the regular season, and they need to show it in the postseason. They can't fold now, and I think that it's going to be important for this city to be behind the Cubs the whole way. If one game goes wrong, they can't fall behind with this team. They can't lose support. It's a fan base that's one of the best in sports. I'm looking at an Indians-Cubs World Series. I think that would be one that carries many interesting storylines, but I'm going to take the Cubs in that as well.
I will also agree with you guys. The Cubs are going to make it to the World Series in my mind. Their pitching is just so good. John Lester is having one of the best years he's had in recent memory. Kyle Hendricks is a Cy Young candidate for the Cubs. And that was obviously Jake Arrieta. He's Jake Arrieta. The run he went on for the past year and a half is unheard of. Their bats are too great. I got the Cubs.
Right. And
moving on to the... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And with the Indians playing in the ALCS against the Red Sox, I think Frank Kona is a fantastic manager, and I think that they're going to have a tough time. Not the Red Sox. They're actually facing the Blue Jays.
Oh, sorry.
My mistake.
Yeah, that is my mistake.
But Frank Kona, a better manager, I think, than what we've seen from the other teams in the AL, and I think that he's really going to have a fun time with this Indians team, and I think he'll take them to the World Series.
And to segue onto that, the American League Championship Series, Mitch, we got your opinion on that. Jaden, how about you? When you got Indians versus Blue Jays, sorry, that is my bad earlier on. You got guys like Carlos Carrasco and Danny Salazar being out. Can the Indians hold the ship?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate the Indians don't have their 2-3 guy in the rotation in there. But, I mean, they're explosive with the bats as well. I'd say they handily faced the Red Sox. Wasn't much of a challenge for them. But I'm going to take the Blue Jays in that one. I think the bats are just going to be way too explosive. You got Tulo, Batista, Encarnacion. I can just keep going. Even deep in their lineup is just hitters. And I just think it's going to be too much for the Indians.
I think the Indians have some pitching to combat a lot of that. They've got Kluber, traded for Andrew Miller earlier this season, and also Cody Allen in the closer role. He's been lights out for them all season long, so they'll look to neutralize some of it, but they're going to have to score some runs if they want to compete with the Blue Jays.
Absolutely. You guys kind of agree on the same thing. We're talking about two different topics. Jaden, you mentioned the hitters just being so explosive for the Blue Jays. And Mitch, you're absolutely right. They do have a really great bullpen there in Cleveland, but can they have the lead to give it to those guys? Exactly. Or are they going to fall behind? The Blue Jays, they're top 4 hitters in the lineup. I mean, in the first inning, you're going to be facing Bautista, Donaldson, Edwin in the first inning.
They're going to put up
good
runs.
Luck. They're going to put up runs.
They're going to.
And we could see some of the mastery from Francona like he did against the Red Sox. Took Miller and put him in the 5th inning of a game to face David Ortiz, doing some really interesting matchup stuff there. So we might see some of that against guys like Bautista and Tulowitzki and Encarnacion. Those guys can really hit, and you can't understate the defense of the Blue Jays. Kevin Pillar in center field, former Buffalo Bison, is tracking down everything. So they're good on defense as well.
So, Jaden, you got the Blue Jays. Mitch, you got the Indians.
I'm going to take the Indians in this one. I think they're going to upset the Blue Jays and move on to the World Series.
So I'm the decider?
You are.
My mind says the Blue Jays just because their bats are way too explosive. They also got a good bullpen as well with Roberto Osuna, who seems to be still healthy out there after that little elbow scare. They got Joe Biaggiani, who's just comes in and pitches. He just gets outs. But my heart says Cleveland, just because it's been a long time coming for them too. I think there is something to do with the Cavaliers winning it all. I think the Indians kind of want to feed off that energy. Now, if only the Browns can hold their end of the deal, which probably won't happen for quite some time.
Yeah.
So my final decision is going to be the Indians against the Cubs.
I'd love to see Charlie Sheen in the stands, maybe reliving some of that major league action to see the Indians get to the World Series.
That's right. So, World Series predictions. Let's start with you, Jim, because if it's going to be Cubs, Blue Jays, who do you think wins?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, I think the Cubs go all the way.
Yeah.
Just Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Jake Arrieta, it's enough right there. And then they're having just players step up. Javier Baez has debatably been the MVP of their postseason. Night in and night out, that guy is making plays defensively. He's taking away runs. He's taking away hits. And, I mean, just if you know Chris Bryant, Rizzo are going to produce, and you know Arrieta's going to pitch, if you have those role players step up like he is, they're going to go far.
And you got Cubs, Indians for Mitch. What do you think?
As much as I would like to say the Indians are going to come away with a World Series victory, they've been good all season. The Cubs are not going to be stopped if they get to the World Series. The curse of the GOAT will be no longer, and the Cubs will come away with a fairly easy victory. I'll say Cubs in 6.
Okay. I'm going to say Steve Bartman, wherever you are, you can come out of your bomb shelter. It's fine. The Cubs will win the World Series. They will beat the Indians if they make it. And
Steve Bartman, if that is what he goes by nowadays, I'm sure he's changed his name because that was brutal.
It's got to be a tough go for that guy. But, yeah, Curse of the GOAT, all that stuff, the black cat running around on the field, Bartman, everything. I think it's all going to be erased. The clock will reset to 0. 108 years in the making. I think the Cubs will be the 2016 World Series champions. All right.
Glad that we're all on the same page with that.
Well, that's going to be it for this podcast. But to end it, before we end it, Mitch, you got a really interesting story, don't you?
I do. We're looking into the tennis world, which is not something that I do very often, but a story caught my eye. 21-year-old Nick Kyrgios playing in the Shanghai Masters. He had previously won the Japan Open, a fairly big tennis tournament. This guy is ranked number I believe it's 13 in the world, 14 in the world.
Is he's American? Said
He's from Great Britain.
Great Britain.
Yes,
okay.
he is
taking part in a lot of
right.
Japan, Shanghai.
21-year-old kid playing against an unranked opponent, Misha Zverev, and Zverev had trouble with Kyrgios early on in the first set, but ended up beating him 6-3. Now Kyrgios, frustrated with himself after hitting a few balls into the net, missing a few serves, sort of just goes through the motions in the second set and loses 6-1. He loses on purpose, it seems. He concedes victory to Zverev, an unranked player, and at one point a fan shouted to Kyrgios and told him to respect the game. His response, "Do you want to come out here and play?" This is a 21-year-old kid who is setting an example for young kids and people everywhere, conceding victory because he's a sore loser.
Yeah, that's a shame. You hate to see someone's ego take over their talent, but this is a prime case of it. The kid just sounds like he's got too big of a head and thinks
Right.
he's the best. And if he doesn't win, he's just going to go out and be a sore loser.
I think at the end of last year's Super Bowl when Cam Newton kind of just didn't talk in the press conference, I would actually almost rather see that than just show up the fans, giving up on purpose and showing up the fans instead of just going out there and fighting.
That's another aspect of this. You can't have a guy do that because people pay hard-earned money to come see him play in a tennis match, and he was the main attraction of this match. He's a ranked player. They say, let's come see this 21-year-old tennis star. Star is being used very loosely here because I don't think you can call somebody a star if you come out and put on a display like that. He later apologized in a tweet, but in the press conference he continued to berate the fans, going on to say that they don't have to come and watch if they don't want to, but they wanted to see him play. That was the whole point. That's what tennis is. It's a spectator sport, and people from all around the world come to see this guy play, and he puts on a display like that. It's embarrassing, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, that's going to end it for this week's podcast. Until next time, I'm Austin Speaker.
I'm Mitch Courtney.
And I'm Jay Estrella for all guys.
Thanks for listening.